David Klein. Who's that lady? David, could you give like a 90-second, 2-minute overview of what you're up to?
Yeah, I think that's Siri's sister, by the way. She's the
Oh, really?
bad sibling. Yeah. So I'll try to be coherent here, and I'm also I want to bring in my colleague Risa Levitt as well, since we are developing this class together.
Cool.
And we've been having lots of conversations this week, batting around ideas. So we obviously don't have a class, an actual plan to bring you yet, but we have a lot of ideas coming out of this. And I think where we've ended up is that rather than just going chronologically or exploring each of the themes as it was presented to us this week, to draw from a lot of those, but to also draw from our own expertise. And we kind of bookend anti-Semitism in some ways, or Jewish studies in some ways, in that Risa will tell you in a second, is an expert in the Hebrew Bible and that period. And I'm a historian of race relations in America in the 20th century. I'm mostly a civil rights movement scholar. So our plan is to really sort of use those as the bookends and anchors of a course. The challenge is how do we fill in the middle, and especially the Holocaust. So Risa, is it all right if we jump to Risa?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think, in our discussions, it struck us that having a really firm foundation in the area of understanding the context in which Christianity came out of early Judaism and then subsequently Islam is sort of understanding that notion of supersessionism is crucial to understanding what happens later. And in a lot of the syllabi that I've looked at, they sort of hop in the Middle Ages or something like that. So I think that's an area that we could focus on quite successfully. And then, like David said, instead of making this sort of a linear chronological here from point A to B, C, is try to tackle these topics contextually once we've established a really good background. The trick the thing that boggles our mind, and maybe other people can speak to this, is how do you do this in 14 weeks, which I can't say I've really figured out just yet.
Okay, so thank you. And also, please, when you finish your syllabi, we'd be really grateful to have it and put it on the website, and it could be a resource to other scholars who become part of our network or attend our programming. And there's many people actually that we don't really know that are using the materials. So it's having a bit of a ripple effect. So it's a good place to store the information. And again, we're a resource. If you guys have any questions, between us, we could probably provide answers most of the time. Okay, Shai, the floor is yours.
Okay, so I have a few dimensions that I'm going to implement after this mind-blowing seminar. First, I'm going to start writing an article, which is not a syllabi of a course, but it is an article, together with BESA Center and the International Communication Center in Bar Ilan, where I'm active. I'm going to write an article about Holocaust Memorial in terms of government relation and the competition and the fighting for a good Holocaust memory. And then we have, unfortunately or fortunately, we have a few recent case studies. So this is number one. And number two, I'm going to teach Introduction for International Relation first for BA and MA. And I believe I need to add the anti-Semitism component in international relation meaning, which means, I know that it sounds very cliche, but in Israel, when we teach IR, international relations, we don't speak about anti-Semitism, right? Yeah. We speak about decision-making and idealism and realism and all of those power and shifting power, but we don't speak about anti-Semitism. I believe I'm going to add that. And third, as a lecturer in the School of Communication in Bar Ilan, I have I'm lecturing in the international school, and I believe that I have to add a decent amount of curriculum from this seminar to what I teach there about the Israeli politics. So yes, I have lots of homework to do because of this seminar.
Yeah.
Dr. Small. Yeah.
Cool. It's a good sign. And I also appreciated your comment about the sort of the politics of Holocaust memory in Israel. There's been some horrible cases that I know you're referring to. So that's an important issue as well, the politics of this.
Yeah, I have to share with you that I'm consulting to the Israeli Foreign Minister right now, and we have those debates and discussion. And you know, in the end of the day, we're talking about run from the Israeli Foreign Ministry, talking with someone in Poland,
Yeah.
and I believe I need to be more active with them.
Yeah.
And I wish I could have sneak them in to the seminar and tell them, look, Ran, look what's happening in the world. Because seriously, I mean, last time I touched the countering and fighting anti-Semitism was around 7 years ago, before I did the mistake and wanted to write a PhD. And I came back now, and the situation got much more complex and worse.
Yeah.
So on a personal note, Charles, thank you so much for the seminar. And I know I got older, but now I even appreciated more of what you're doing, because as Aliza said, there is no other way. I mean,
Yeah. Thank you, Shai. I appreciate your kind words. I'm glad you were here. So thank you. We'll stay in touch.
Yes.
Good. Kane.
Okay, so I'm actually one of the Weissel King scholars, so mine will be the community project rather than like a syllabi thing. But obviously with the recent flare-up with the Israel-Palestine conflict, the Tab, which is like a UK university newspaper that's like online, reported that Jewish societies across the country reported a massive spike in anti-Semitism. So my project's going to focus on combating anti-Semitism on campus, particularly at Manchester University, which is where I'm going to be starting a master's in September. So my initial plan at the moment is to, once I've started and settled in a bit, is to contact the University Jewish Society and sort of engage with them if there's any way I could carry out sort of interviews for Jewish students, like for them to send out possibly like sort of feelers to the university through the University Students' Union to like get interviews with students that have experienced anti-Semitism, and then from whatever I find from these interviews, which I imagine will show, you know, quite a lot of instances of anti-Semitism on campus, hopefully through the union take this to like the university leadership to recommend various things that could be done, such as fully implementing the IRA definition of anti-Semitism, which I know the university at the moment is like partially sort of adopted, but they've not fully adopted it as like a set policy for how they deal with anti-Semitism cases that are brought up. Or maybe even to encourage staff at the university to create a course on anti-Semitism, because the university has its own Jewish Studies Centre, so the expertise is already there to talk about the issue.
Cool. Okay, thanks. And Haris Rafiq is waving to me here. He lives in Manchester, and I think he knows the local landscape well. So you can email him. His contact information is in the program if you want to contact him. He knows the university well and the city well.
Yeah, that sounds good. Cool. Cheers.
Thanks. And also before we go on, you know, there are many scholars connected to ISGAP. So if any of the scholars or students want to have a program, a symposium, a one-day conference, we can help you put together a really good program with leading scholars on different aspects of the issue. So we're always a resource to try and help you with research, course development, or programs. So we have a strong network. Okay, Louisa, the floor is yours.
Oh, first of all, hi. Thank you very much. I'm very grateful, and I really like this program and gives me a lot. And it also makes me made me challenge myself, my previous ideas or thoughts. So thank you very, very much. So as to my syllabus, I need more time to prepare it more profound, but for now, I would love to have a course about the American Jewry and the issue of anti-Semitism. Because I write about American Jewry, it fits my scientific interest. So I would love to have this course. Of course,
It's 20 hours.
It will be for our young historians, so it should be very strict. It's about the Great Depression, World War II, Civil Rights era. And I would love to focus on the identity politics in the United States and anti-Semitism. I really, I think it's really important and relevant today, and especially for my students, my Russian students, and I think they will love it, and I think it will be very interesting for them, because we already discussed all these things, because it affects us also, of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it will be. I will send you. I think next week some, if it's okay, if you don't
Sure.
mind, because I need your advices on some topics.
Okay. No, with pleasure. And also in about 6 to 8 weeks, we're going to publish a book called Poisoning the Wells, which will be about anti-Semitism in the US. It's an edited volume and there's some really good articles in it.
Yeah, I would love to read it. Thank
Cool.
you.
It's by Corinne Blackmare and Andrew Pesson. They're the editors. So it's a very good book.
Thank you.
Cool. Sammy, are you there? No. Okay, Philip, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you very much, and thank you again for the opportunity to participate at this conference. It's been extremely enlightening for me. The course I envision would be for, excuse me, undergraduate students, and I envision it as being a broad course on anti-Semitism, past and present, in 3 sections or a 15-week course. Section 1 would be on pre-Holocaust anti-Semitism, in other words, from antiquity to the Holocaust. Then the Holocaust, and the final section would be present-day anti-Semitism. In the first section, I would use Bernard Lazaire's Anti-Semitism, Its History and Causes. If any of you are familiar with that work, I think it's pretty good for a crash course in anti-Semitism because it's comprehensive and yet concise. It's only about 150 odd pages. Anyhow, it's pretty good. And then I'll also supplement his work with some of my own paper that I wrote some time ago, Bricks in the Road to Auschwitz, an examination of the influences and precedents that paved the way to the Holocaust, in which we would cover. It'd be kind of a segue into the next section, obviously, which would be on the Holocaust itself. For that section, I intend to use Wolfgang Ben's his Holocaust history. I thought that would be appropriate for a couple of reasons. One is that I thought it might be important for the students to read the history as written by a German, which is kind of one of the unique aspects of his history, so that there wouldn't be any chance of this denial coming in or a Jewish perspective. And also, as has been noted, it's a masterpiece of compression itself. Again, fairly small volume, 150 pages. I also want to play this film, The Son of Saul. If you've not seen that, I do think it's a very powerful film, I believe. Very little dialogue, but it just shows a member of the Sonderkommando going through his tasks and his quest to try and salvage humanity in that environment. And then I would like to use the Sonderkommando diary of Zalman Gradovsky, From the Heart of Hell. Either that or Philip Mueller's Eyewitness Auschwitz, also as reading material, and then conclude that section with Star Eternal by Kotsetnik, and which would segue into modern anti-Semitism. This book I chose because it's fairly easy to find still, even though all of his work is out of print and has been for a while. But he starts this book with an image of a clock on the in town, where everybody's looking at this clock. And he also ends his last chapter looking at this same clock after liberation. He goes back to Metropolis. And he notices the clock is still set at the same hour. And the takeaway from that is nothing has changed. Nothing has changed, which leads us into the third and final section of the syllabus that I envision on current anti-Semitism. I'm still working out which sources I might incorporate that would be most appropriate. There's been so much good from presentations this week and from the syllabus ISGAP. It's been like drinking from a fire hydrant for me. And so it's going to take a little time for me to kind of distill that and find what will be the most appropriate resources. And then I'll conclude the semester with an interview from Katsetnik Yehiel Nur, in which he says that the Holocaust was a dress rehearsal, and with Lawrence Langer's insight that what once happened remains possible evermore, and hopefully end with a charge for each of our students to carry their learning forward in practical ways.
Cool. Thank you, Philip. Thank you. Sorry, Chris, you have your hand is up. You have a quick question, or?
No, I just wanted to offer my syllabus that I was teaching the course on modern European anti-Semitism and the Holocaust for 2 times. Now I'm teaching it for the 3rd time in the fall semester. And if anyone wants to get it, I'm more than glad to send it to you. Okay.
Thank you.
And you can get your whatever, like take your ideas about it. And it's the result of years of research. And I think you may get some ideas.
Thank you, Chris. I think it's also on our website, but you can contact Chris. His email is in the handbook.
Yes, please.
Thank you. Thank you. So Helena, the floor is yours. Thank you, Philip. Sorry, Helena, you're muted.
I want to thank the organizers of the seminar for the comprehensive coverage of the problem of anti-Semitism. The material of my course will be very special. It will be auto anti-Semitism, the problem that we didn't spoke in the seminar, but it still exists. The hostility of the new immigrants from the former Soviet Union to Israel, to the special parts of Israeli people, to religious Jews, to Orthodox Jews, Haredim, to the Jews from the East, Mizrahim, and especially to the repatriants from Africa, to Ethiopia. And it's not so, I'm not so optimistic in this, in this case until now. And what I really learned here in this seminar, and I think it helped me a lot, this is a scheme of Natan Sharansky that I didn't know that it exists, and I learned it in one of the lectures, and also read the materials that were recommended. That anti-Semitism, it's 3D: demonization, delegitimation, and double standards. And I think that I will build my course on this in these 3 parts. So I want to add that I know that I will work with very toxic materials and it's not so easy also for me and for my students, but I think that the truth have to be said, and we have to do something. We have to cure this very, very painful problem. What is the very interesting things that I learned when I studied here in the seminar, that materials that I gather and that I want to teach are built like a hologram. The hostility to the special groups of the Jewish people among the Jews themselves, you know, it's something like the hostility of the non-Jews to Jews, to anti-Semitism. We're speaking about the Jewish anti-Semitism. It's very complicated. And once more, I can say it's not so nice, but somebody have to cure this pain, I think so. And I think it will be the first course in this of this kind. And I hope that if my students will learn it good, maybe I would not have to teach it once more.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think that it's an issue that we didn't really discuss much, but I think when the victims of hate start to internalize the hatred, it's perhaps the most pernicious forms of hate, when groups start hating their own identity. And it's a part of the equation, so a very important issue. You know, I just realized, Noreen, I don't know what time it is in Bangladesh, but it must be getting late. So I think I'll give you the floor because it's late, so.
Yeah, it's 1 a.m. at
1
night.
a.m., okay,
right
so
now.
I didn't realize, yeah. So thank you for staying with us. So the floor is yours, so go ahead.
Thank you so much. Let me first allow me to thank the organizers, because it was very integrating event that I attended, and I'm really happy to be with you. Just if you allow me again, I would be sharing my slides. Can you see it?
Yeah, we see it.
Okay, I will be very, very brief. I haven't decided the title of the course that I'm going to propose. It's going to be the very first course on anti-Semitism studies in Bangladesh. So it would be very challenging for me. So I'm really hopeful about it. For the course, I'm picking up 4 to 8 weeks of time for this course, and it will be held in the weekends, because the center is taken by the students as a co-curricular, as part of their co-curricular activities. So they would be having their regular classes in the weekdays, so they would be coming here in the weekends and taking this course. So there will be no traditional credit hours. The location, obviously, it's my work place, that is the Center for the Study of Genocide and Justice, Liberation War Museum in Bangladesh. And the beneficiaries of this course would be the undergrad and postgraduate students, especially those who are the Bangladeshi nationals. In terms of conducting this course, I'm planning to follow a classroom pattern, but apart from that, not to make the course monotonous, I would be engaging the students with group exercises and presentations on different aspects. And I would be happy to project some documentaries and films, which would be very powerful. And also in the end of the course, I would be trying to make a bridge between the participants and the Holocaust survivors, perhaps by taking an interview or a session online with the participants. So now let me take the course components to you. I would be focusing on in the very beginning about the history of Holocaust and Jewish persecution, because in our country, most of the cases, students don't know much about the Holocaust and its other aspects. So I have to give them the basic understanding. And also in terms of that, when I will be starting about the anti-Semitism issues, then I have to explain some conceptual understandings to them, like Judaism, Zionism, anti-Semitism. I would also like to focus on the geopolitics issues, entangling the anti-Semitic attitudes and also the Muslim Brotherhood. While discussing all these issues, I hope to also give an explanation about the hate speech, the fascism and extremism going on around the globe. Apart from that, I would be giving some ideas about how to combat anti-Semitism and racism, and how the UN agencies are dealing with these issues, how they're responding, and also the international regional courts are addressing these issues. And then lastly, of course, I would giving a touch on the comparative aspects on regional perspectives of anti-Semitism. And also, I didn't notice any very comprehensive lectures here in this seminar about the South Asian anti-Semitism issues. So I hope to learn more about these issues in the coming days so that I can offer this in my course to the students. And now I'm just looking for the required ratings. So that's all from my side. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You're very organized. So we look forward to seeing your course. I hope you can share it with us.
Thank you so much.
Okay, and thank you for your patience staying up so late during the whole week. Thank you. I'm glad you're here. Thanks. Matthew, the floor is yours. And I think, we were just informed, we have a hard stop in our room in about 45, 50 minutes. So we need to really go through everybody so everybody gets a chance. So Matthew.
Okay, Charles, I'll be as brief as possible. I'm not as organized as Noreen is, but I want to thank everyone at Oxford. I want to thank everyone, the organizers, Daphne, Ira, and yourself, Charles, for this great experience, incredible experience. And I was just working on really quickly on a two-pronged approach. I'm looking at working on a personal project with about Holocaust distortion in Eastern Europe, especially in post-communist countries. And for a course, I'm trying to develop a general course on anti-Semitism. I work at Stockton University, and we have a lot of Holocaust and genocide studies courses, but we do not have a course on anti-Semitism. I think it's very important to have a course like anti-Semitism in a post-Holocaust world, to have a continuation of this. So I think that's very, very important. And because and to look at anti-Semitism from all the perspectives that we have spoken about, as far as the far right, far left, and coming from political reason. And yes, and I think that it would be important because right now I'm teaching a class on race and racism, and there is a mandate for that at Stockton University right now. And I think it would be important to try to push for a mandate to have a course on anti-Semitism, especially for students coming into the university, coming into Stockton, because these general courses, it's a good introduction for them to understand and to be introduced to these themes for the first time. And that's why I would rather prefer, like, I'm making a curriculum right now for a general course rather than a graduate course, so I can reach more people, to introduce them to these themes, and to have these students carry on this work, and etc. So that's it. That's all.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Yeah, it's very important. And you mentioned something very important. It's amazing. And I think we've discussed it during the week, but there are correctly and rightfully centers on issues of race and gender and gendered identities, which has become part of the general curriculum, as it should be and must be, and it should be further developed. But given the legacy of anti-Semitism in Western civilization, it's amazing that we are kind of putting together a network of scholars that are introducing courses on contemporary anti-Semitism. There's a blind spot in academia on this ancient hatred, and we don't have the language to converse. We don't have the awareness. So this work is so important. So thank you, Matthew. Thank you. Who is? Ria. Ria, are you still with us? It's late in India.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool. Sorry. I should have, go ahead. And then Catherine.
That's okay. I'm quite used to this. Can I just share my screen to show everybody a picture? This might be a little
Please.
disturbing, but I think this needs a lot of attention. Can everybody see my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's an issue in India, and this is what I'd like to be focusing on when I take up my community project in collaboration with the Center for Israel Studies at my university. People, especially people from a lower education background or students who do not have a lot of awareness about international history, usually tend to use Hitler as a metaphor, or rather as a caricature, to represent something strict or something that scares them, which is a complete misrepresentation. And I'd like to sort of change that in their minds and educate them about what exactly happened in history in terms of the genocide and in terms of the Holocaust, to help them understand that he's in fact a terrible figure of inspiration, and that he should not be taken as some sort of fascist god to these Indians. And as you see in these pictures, people have had the habit of naming soap operas, stores, and even putting stickers on their cars after Hitler and his legacy. I'd like to do a small part in trying to stop this, at least on a small basis, and we'll hope that it carries forward. So yeah, thank you.
Cool, thank you, thank you. Thank you, and thanks for your patience. It's so late there, so thank you for staying with us. Okay. Catherine.
Am I also okay to share my screen really quickly? Super.
Yes,
okay.
of course, yeah.
So I'm actually slightly embarrassed after all the beautiful PowerPoints we've seen, because mine is extremely wordy and lame. But in essence, I just wanted to show you, because it makes it slightly quicker to explain.
Is the screen shared?
Is it sharing?
Now it is.
Now it is. Excellent. Okay, so this is a module that was prepared following the 2019 ISGAP and was taught for the first time last year. And in essence, it's a history module for final year undergraduate students that begins in ancient history in ancient Greece and proceeds up to the current day. And kind of the point or the purpose behind this is firstly to get students thinking about what anti-Semitism actually is, and in particular, whether there is any difference between anti-Semitism, anti-Judaism, Judeophobia, racism, all these kind of terms that people throw around but maybe don't define exactly. So as we go through the course, we kind of talk about these definitions and how that fits in with what we're studying. And as we look at the varying manifestations, we have these discussions about kind of what's going on here, what's causing it, what's driving it, what imagery are we seeing, to try to come to some conclusions. So because it's a history module, there's two primary source analysis as the first part. And then because history students write an awful lot of essays, but pretty much in the workplace, nobody's ever going to ask them to do that again. The other assessment is a briefing paper on an issue of their choice that can be historical or can be contemporary. And as I say, we kind of go up to the last module, sorry, the last class of term. Last year was on coronavirus anti-Semitism. So it's kind of from, 5,000 years BCE to yesterday. This is just an example for 1 week. So the pattern kind of once we get to the modern period is 1 week on Europe, 1 week on the Middle East, and we flip back and forth. This is an example of the 20th century Middle East and North Africa session, looking at case studies of Iraq and Palestine under the British Mandate. Students have 3 set readings to prepare for the class. We look at different types of primary sources, and they also have the option of kind of additional enrichment videos as well. Also, every week there is a discussion board task. Several of my students actually have the the honor and the privilege of being Wiesel King students this year, and they're probably kind of swearing under their breath because they see how much work they had to do for their credits last year compared to what's expected of students this year. But this isn't graded at all. This is kind of to build and to scaffold the skills that they need in order to kind of put together their primary source analysis. So there isn't a grade for this. Last year it did carry a nominal grade. This won't be graded, but it'll kind of be narrated to students in this way. I've sent my updated syllabus also across to Ira and Daphne today. It has hyperlinks on, and like Chris said, it's by no means as accomplished as a syllabus as his, but you're very welcome to make use of anything that might be useful and cannibalize whatever. And if you have any feedback or suggestions also, please do feel free to get in touch. Thank you.
Amazing, Catherine, thank you. And you know, as this network of scholars engaged in the subject matter grows, you know, we can share and help each other develop courses and programming and all sorts of ideas. So Catherine, thank you so much. Thank you. I see, Victor, you have a quick question?
Oh, no, I would like to show my ideas for syllabus. That's it.
Pardon me? You want to present now? Is that what you're
Oh,
saying?
no, whenever it's my
Okay.
turn.
Oh,
I'm not sure how it works.
Yeah, go ahead. And just please take a couple of minutes because we have to leave the room here in Pembroke. So go ahead.
Oh, okay. So I have a, you see my screen? Okay, cool. Yeah, so I have to thank Christoph, Joanne, and Pedro because they were helping you know, through these days. So I just took this quote from Alicia. And so she said, I wonder why there was not an Israel in those times where I could go. And I found it very connected to, you know, the idea that I have for a course on the Holocaust refugee crisis in order to connect a traditional historical perspective on the Holocaust, which I normally teach, to a new way to present anti-Semitism. So what was the origin of the Holocaust refugee crisis? Well, the answer is because of anti-Semitism, right? So I designed an overview, you know, like some historical background from, you know, like how, like the numbers of refugees, why the Jews in Germany were attacked, you know, some historical background. Then I said, by exploring the moral lessons from the Holocaust refugee crisis, students can apply historical knowledge to understand the role of survivors in the foundation of the State of Israel, current instances of anti-Semitism, and other recent refugee crises. This is like more context. Here you know, I cover the Nuremberg laws in regards to citizenships for Jews, you know, the procedures they did and why there was a need for a Jewish state, you know, for these people after losing citizenship. And then, you know, covering why even sections within Jewish communities in the US opposed the admittance of Jewish refugees to the back then British controlled Palestine. Why, you know, some questions, what were the motives behind the attitude of the states involved? Why was the help from the international community so limited? Why Holocaust refugees experienced such opposition to return as a community to their ancestral land? They're trying to connect it to, you know, to current issues. I have some adjectives here, you know, some vocabulary too, to understand, you know, some concepts. Key information to, you know, what's the, you know, the type of students this course is directed to. Some materials I have, these I just had a conversation with a professor I have. So she recommended me this book by Dwork and Van Pelt, Flight from the Reich, which reframes refugee history in relation to the Holocaust. In other words, reinforcing the idea that it is very much part of and connected to the Holocaust, because some historians say that there is no such thing as Holocaust refugees, as Holocaust Jewish refugees. Well, more bibliography. Obviously, the Jewish State book, and some sources on anti-Semitism, and I need to include some current, some other sources on current anti-Semitism. And this is the thematic sections: historical background of the Holocaust refugee crisis, Nazi and international anti-Semitism, why such limited help from outside, the role of the Holocaust in the foundation of the State of Israel, current instances of anti-Semitism, humanitarian institutions created after the Holocaust refugee crisis, and current instances of refugee crisis. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much. And please make sure to share your course once it's ready.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, please stop sharing your screen so I can see who else is on the.
Trying to.
Thank you, cool, thank you. All right, so I think the next person will be Noah.
Okay, hi. First, it's an honor. It has been an honor to be here. It has been like drinking out of a fire hydrant. And I'm not a professor, although I have found thinking about creating a syllabus a very exciting exercise. We certainly read enough in school. So naturally, given my formal I'll skip ahead. Ruben and I have been discussing doing a project together. Both of us have been inspired by Professor Dejani and the idea of reconciliation. We hope to put together a panel. The word symposium is very grandiose, but it should fit. We would like to have a couple of different ideas for these panels. The first of which being basically how I see it in my mind is trying to give clarity to the dialogue, as we've been trying to do this week, or I've been trying to be educated about. So we have we would have a panel on reconciliation. We would have perhaps a panel on reconciliation within the context of Israel and Palestine, and also in the context of modern anti-Semitism as it relates to those concepts and peoplehoods. So that would be an open lecture. Ruben and I both have also ideas of our own, but as a formal student of the Holocaust, and also having been reintroduced to hip hop today, I can say it's been an interdisciplinary at the least. So thank you all very much, and it's an honor. Again, I'll hand it over to Ruben if that's okay.
Sure. I'll just say very quickly, when I was a student involved in the anti-apartheid movement, we created all sorts of programs, symposiums, workshops, courses on what was going on in South Africa at the time. So students could do a lot of creative stuff. So cool. Thank you. And please keep in touch. Cool. So Ruben.
Yes, I also want to say thank you, first of all, for everything we have taught here, and for all the speakers and all the people who organized this amazing and very interesting event. I will also try to share my screen, which I hope you can see. I assume that's a yes, perfect. So as already said, we would really like to organize an international panel. And Dr. Small and others, we would really like your input on that. We hope that we can get some funding from international organizations. And we also hope that our hometown universities will be willing to participate. And we also hope that ISGAP will. A second idea that we had that may tie into this a little has to do with Levinas's ethical theory. That is something that I have written some papers on and done some research on. And I was very interested to see that it may have some overlap with the movement of Professor Dajani that he calls Al-Wasatiyya, which is something that we don't know enough about to really get into in detail right now. But it is something that we would like to delve into a little and see if it could be interesting to develop a research that tries to see whether there is some overlap between these two theories. And we showed this also to Dr. Lawrence Emsel, who added that this may not only bring together a Western, between quotation marks, and an Islamic humanist philosophy, but that it is also a meta-narrative process in which both sides may recognize each other's religious philosophical tradition or recognition of the other. That is a very not worked out idea, but we would be interesting to see what's possible there. And then the last idea has to do with my hometown university, which is the University of Groningen, where there are courses on regional and international historical anti-Semitism, but not yet about contemporary anti-Semitism. There are undergraduate courses on genocide and mass murder, but here also no context about contemporary anti-Semitism. And there is a graduate course on anti-Semitism that also does not incorporate a contemporary perspective. So I have been in contact with these lecturers, and I hope that ISGAP wants to send a scholar to give a guest lecture on contemporary anti-Semitism. And I will see if I can add some either regional or national statistics on contemporary anti-Semitism to the guest lecture. And
Cool. Okay, thank you. And yes, you know, the ISGAP scholars are a resource. We have 60 odd research fellows, and people are experts in different aspects of the issue, and we're happy to be a resource. So the two of you are doing interesting stuff, and I wish you success. It's very important. So thank you. Thank you for being here. Brandy, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I want to thank you for being here. I feel really grateful to have been with everyone here and all the learning this past week. I have a very basic overview and framework, which I'll discuss, and I'm coming from it as I'm a social worker. I'm not a professor, so I'm coming from it as a social worker. So I'm looking at a project or course looking at the weaponization of intersectionality. One of the things that sparked my interest was the work that you have done, looking at the money behind a lot of academic disciplines with specific political motivations that have kind of turned or turned certain disciplines towards a certain direction that has been fueling a lot of contemporary anti-Semitism. So I've also found that over the past few years, there's been an infiltration of anti-Semitic ideology into social movements throughout the West, specifically in the United States. And the question that I keep asking myself is, what does the Israeli-Palestinian conflict have to do with X, like whatever movement it is? Whether it's the Women's March, Black Lives Matter, environmental justice movements, the Dyke March in Chicago, police reform and the deadly exchange, K-12 curricula. Their recurring theme seems to be the conflation of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict with these movements. So I'm looking at examining contemporary anti-Semitism in current social movements and how that manifests under the guise of social justice. And while I also have to acknowledge that these social movements have been rather American-centric, there are global implications because we see them spread throughout the world. So looking at going over themes of contemporary anti-Semitism as they relate to pink washing, green washing, purple washing, whatever else gets labeled as an excuse to demonize Israel or just spread blatant anti-Semitic lies under the guise of social justice. And so in two questions I hope get answered are, why is anti-Semitism a core element of these movements? And then what happens to the original intended beneficiary of these social movements after they've been hijacked? My target audience is before college. So I would look at upperclassmen in high school, because I think that that's, or what I've been seeing recently, that's a lot of who gets pulled into these types of social movements under the guise of social justice, and then where they arrive at college, university level already with these ideas like cemented. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandy. And we look forward to receiving your course and program. And please say hello to Noah. Thanks for being here. Max, the floor is yours.
Hi, yeah. Again, thanks to everyone who's organised this. It's been a really humbling, if not emotionally exhausting experience, to be honest. But it got me 5 days off work, so I'm not really bothered. My concept is the bare bones of it, really. It sounds quite simple, to be honest, but it will be implemented either my former university, which is Liverpool John Moores, or my future university, which is University of Manchester. At the beginning of the academic year, there'll be a questionnaire sent out to all students in the humanities department, and then one again at the end of the academic year. It'll be 10 to 15 questions, and you answer it multiple choice between strongly disagree, strongly agree, and it'll ask questions with regards to people's opinions on the Israel-Palestine conflict, the BDS movement, anti-Israeli, what have you, all that kind of stuff. And then throughout the academic year, we'll be sending out, or I'll be sending out, the most sort of up-to-date, balanced, fair, peer-reviewed articles, primary sources. Hopefully the ISGAP Resource Centre will be very helpful with this, to try and sort of turn the volume down in this quite heated debate that we're finding on university campuses, to try and offer clarity, because I think that a lot of people, when they create an opinion on something and they go looking for it on the internet, they will eventually find it, and it kind of creates this reinforcement. So hopefully this will be able to change opinions. And then, yes, as I said, at the end of the academic year, we'll repeat the survey and see if anyone has been convinced otherwise. I'm not sure what we're going to do with this data. That's something I'm looking to find out. But yeah, that's kind of the basic idea of it. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you, Max, and thanks for being here this whole week. And we're not far. Manchester and Oxford is not far, so we're in the neighborhood. James, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I prepared a few written comments, so I'm just going to be reading to keep within the 2-minute limit. So during this past academic year at Kalamazoo College in Michigan, as a scholar of representations of anti-Judaism in 16th and 17th century Spanish literature, I offered a quarter-long undergraduate senior seminar course which explored the links between early modern Spanish anti-Judaism and contemporary American anti-Semitism. I entitled it Concepts of Race in Early Modern Spain and Spanish America, since the word raza in Spanish, according to the Tesoro de la Lengua Castellana, a Spanish dictionary from the 16th century, was a pejorative term in 17th century Spain, which referred to those who possessed Jewish or Moorish bloodlines. Going back to what you said, Charles, that indeed race was referred, that the category of race was a biologically determined category. The culminating project for that course was the creation of an augmented reality poster which allowed students to see how anti-Jewish tropes found in early modern Spain have been recycled and reconfigured in 21st century Spanish and American political discourse, and how best to identify and confront the anti-Semitism that they encounter on their social media feeds every day. In the current 300 level undergraduate literature course I am developing with the aid of this institute, I aim to expand on that senior seminar and offer students a conceptual vocabulary to fight anti-Semitism in contemporary Spain and Latin America. To accomplish this objective, we will focus first on how the concept of raza was reutilized as a propagandistic tool by the regime of Francisco Franco to purify Spain from 1939 to 1975, and purify is in scare quotes. We will examine these issues by studying the film Raza as well as propagandistic posters from the time. In Unit 2, we will then study both Spain's response or silence on the Holocaust alongside the work of Jewish scholars and writers who fled Spain and Europe and commented on the war of the Holocaust from Latin America, among them being Americo Castro, Jorge Luis Borges, and Ariel Dorfman. We will then conclude the course exploring, on the one hand, how Spain is attempting to reintegrate Jews back into their nation by the passage of the Law of Jewish Memory, a kind of reparation for the expulsion of the Jews in 1492, and on the other, furthering anti-Semitic rhetoric on various social media outlets, particularly as it relates to Jewish communities in Spain and the State of Israel. Beyond offering undergraduate students a view of Spanish history from a Jewish perspective, in developing a conceptual vocabulary for students to identify and fight against contemporary anti-Semitism, we'll also be exploring how best to define what is anti-Semitic in each unit of the course. Here I'm thinking of Dr. Kotek's lecture on the difference between anti-Judaism and anti-Semitism, as well as ways of recognizing the self and the other. And I thank you, Charles, for your recommendation of Emmanuel Levinas, which I'll include at the end of the course. To conclude, this is one of the many courses I've come up with thanks to this institute. And I simply want to thank you, Charles, Ira, Daphne, and the rest of the ISGAP team for an absolutely eye-opening and compelling summer institute. I hope everybody keeps in touch, and I look forward to working with ISGAP in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, James. We look forward to working with you, and your course sounds fascinating. And it's a topic that I don't know if there's much work on, at least in our sphere or network. So it's very important. So thank you. Thank you. Okay, so I see next on the screen is Paula Cohn.
Thank you. I have to leave soon. I think I chatted with Charles. I have a student-related crisis here at Drexel, which happens to come up occasionally. But I'm glad to be near Brandy's statement, because I definitely would like to work with her. I have emailed her about this. We have a series of panels at Drexel in my college under the rubric of civil discourse. And I would love to be able to take advantage of some of the people here, both the speakers and some of the fellows, the students, to be on some of these panels, which we've done many controversial and important topics, but we have not addressed anti-Semitism. So some of the panels I'm thinking about would be Black Jewish intersectionality, anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism. And I was very taken with Brandy's topic, the weaponization of intersectionality. I think is fascinating. Again, these are delicate issues, and within a college environment, I have some trepidation, but I think meeting some of you, having you on these panels would make them effective. The other idea is, of course, I'm a literary scholar. I've written on Daniel Deronda, but I think it would be a great course on Daniel Deronda to talk about the representation of 19th century Jews and the Zionist movement through that novel. And I have taught The Merchant of Venice many, many times, but bringing to bear some of the material that I've learned here from this conference would, I think, make my teaching of it more profound.
So wonderful. Thank you, Paula. It sounds wonderful that you'll be collaborating with people here. And also, I took Ruth Weiss's course at the Tikva Foundation on the novel. I don't know if you know, it's recorded.
Yes, I know of her course and her work very well.
Yeah, cool. So thank you, and thanks for being here. And we'll stay in touch, I hope. And I hope the student is okay. Okay. Who? Abu Salah? Are you with us?
Yes, thank you.
I just realized it's very late where you are, so please, you have the floor.
Okay. Thanks a lot. As faculty members, we cannot offer courses in my university, but we can propose courses. So I may propose some issues related to anti-Semitism studies or Holocaust studies to the syllabus committee. I don't know they will accept it or reject it, but this is my plan at the moment. Thanks a lot, and thanks again.
Thank you. Thanks for being with us. And success. Okay, Diane, is it you? Yeah, okay. Diane's in the house.
Share screen?
Sure.
You might want to go there.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. I primarily teach English literature, and so I would be teaching this material through the primary text on the reading list that we received, and I'm still plugging in what would go where and looking at what to reread. So I want to develop a course called A Forgotten Other, Global Anti-Semitism and the Academy. And the way in which I want to structure the course is through a series of 6 units. I have 16 weeks to teach. And so the first would be called What's in a Name? And oh, I forgot my phone over there. In that unit, I kind of want to talk about, no, this asking me to unmute myself. No. I want to look at the competing definitions, interpretations of things like Semite and anti-Semite. One of our speakers spoke about that. I thought it was really important. Thank you so much. To have students really be grounded in what is Judaism, what is a Jew, what is Muslim, what is Islam, what is Semite, anti-Semite, and things like that. Historical origins of those terms, religious, cultural, social, political influences on those terms. And then I would want to look at what comprises Jewish identity. And so in terms of that, biblical origin, the history of Judaism, history of Jerusalem, the color line, and how, you know, Jews were not considered white, and now they've, you know, been culturally bleached through socio-semiogenesis kind of activities. And then looking at the conflicts, things like all of the things I learned this week about the Muslim Brotherhood and the BDS and, you know, the academy itself, the anti-Semitism that is now ingrained inside the academy. And so looking at the conflicts from that point of view, what is contemporary anti-Semitism? And this would really be the heart and soul and the bulk of the course. And here I want to talk about where it shows up in all of our contemporary institutions, not just in the institution of education, but all across society and all across the globe. And then what are the outcomes? And so let me just find my notes on that. The rise of the green anti-Semitism that people have been talking about, persecution in the academy and on the streets, Jews driven out of professional life, global gaslighting and terrorism, and then end with what can we do? What are the solutions? Someone spoke about this idea of education, legislation, and then I think somebody said, I think it might have been Sammy, add litigation. And so in terms of education, not just in the formal university or school system, whether it's K through 12 or secondary higher ed, but also with like community talks and symposiums and going to places of worship and things like that. The things that Charles is doing here, how that affects policy, how, you know, people higher up on the scale are able to influence policy at those national and global levels, and when necessary, have the courage to engage in litigation that will, you know, to stand for what is right and what is true. So roughly, that's how I've outlined my course.
Thank you. To the pub. Thank you. Thanks, Diane. Okay. Okay, Christine, do you want to go? Okay, Christine will come to the computer.
Ow. Can I share my screen on this? Should I unmute myself? Oh, is that coming up? No, your internet went out. It's not my day. Okay.
You can use my computer. No.
I could, but it's
You wanna, we'll go to the next person and you'll get organized.
Try and,
Okay, sorry for the technical. Volker, would you like to present? Sorry, Volker, you're muted. I hope you're feeling well.
Okay. You hear me now?
Yes, yes, we hear you.
Oh, beg your pardon. I can present you something and tell you something. I can present you a little bit of my last seminary I told I teach in the summer semester, 14 weeks about Jewish life, 1,700 years, and this included also anti-Judaism and the definition of anti-Semitism and discourses between the Jewish minority or Jewish leaders and intellectuals against a hostile environment, like Moses Mendelssohn and Lafhatter as a debate, or Leo Beck and Harnack, which is a little bit German focus. And I can show you something, if I may. Is the screen? Can I share the screen?
Yeah, I believe you can. Yes.
No. The problem is doesn't work. Okay, then I'll let it go. I don't want to waste your time. This is what I made in the last semester, but for what I use this wonderful insights I won in the seminary with this very diverse spectrum of lectures, is a little bit a fact-finding mission, because for the next 4 years I will, together with 3 other universities, develop a syllabus for police officers and teachers to and to make a test before what they know about Jewish life, what they know about anti-Semitism, how they acknowledge that it's an anti-Semitic context, an anti-Semitic image, an anti-Semitic situation, because they have a task normally to intervene. And then we want to produce a syllabus to make them capable to react in a adequate manner as civil servants on anti-Semitism. And afterwards we will test them if our syllabus worked and they are à jour with their knowledge. And this will not be as quick as all the others who already produced something for the next semester, but we will take some time, and perhaps we will come back to the seminary and present our results for next time, what we have already tested and achieved. Thank you for all the work you are doing.
Thank you, Volker. Thanks for being with us, and success in your important work. So, Christine, are you ready, or you need more time?
No, I'll just.
Okay, Christine will go ahead now.
Hi.
Can you see her?
No, can't see it. It's just we can see me.
Sit here.
Oh, okay. Okay. I'm focused on, trying to effect a sort of systemic change from the bottom, really. If you look at the ADL pyramid of hate, those tiny little things that happen when people just call somebody a name and they have some bullying and that kind of thing happens, I think that there is a way to, essentially, I'd love to stomp out ignorance is really what I hope this is going to help happen, to make learners aware, and then aware in such a way that they actually feel they could do something in their own locale. So I'm looking at sort of key themes of related works relating to the protocols of the Elders of Zion, contemporary anti-Semitism, and cultural refutation. And my audience that I'm working towards is it's initially what I would call lifelong learners, and then professional teachers, again, not degree seeking, but who, for example, in my university, there's a cadre of about 300 teachers that attend a major workshop event at UT Dallas, and that would be a really interesting audience who could potentially take this curriculum and go run with it. That's what I hope. I think it's important to use an approach that really is from a positive perspective and not a focus on the negative aspect. It's based on constructivist learning and really enabling learner agency. And I think the thing that I came across that
it's 21 hours
thought could really be helpful to this idea would be trying to sort of model it potentially on the model of what's known as citizen science. And I don't know how many people might know of that particular capability, but essentially what it's done, it's been around for at least 10 to 15 years, and it's really encouraging people, whether they be children or young people or elderly people who really are concerned about climate change, for example, or just the way that their environment is degrading, and they want to do something about it. And so it can be anything that an individual is really interested in. It could be how many butterflies come into their garden, at a certain time in the year. It could be a stream that goes by nearby them and they're willing to constructively and consistently go test the water and so on. So these little happenings, these little effects really help to pull enormous amounts of data together that professional scientists can't get. So I'm looking to sort of take that model from a cultural point of view and really engage with young people. So that's kind of where I'm at the moment. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Christine. There's some important ideas that could have a major impact. So success. Yitzhak, the floor is yours.
You hear me? Hi, everyone. First, thank you so much for the fascinating seminar. That was amazingly organized. I learned a lot past week. Thank you, Charles and Ira and Daphne. I'm not a professor, so I will not present a syllabus, but an initiative of a different kind. One of my primary experiences in the seminar, Israeli, is the enormous gap between what Jews around the world feel about anti-Semitism and what Israelis experience, especially regarding what is happening on campuses, but also on the streets and in the media. The issue of anti-Semitism is in relatively low awareness among Israelis in relation to Jews outside Israel. For me, it was very noticeable on the discussions groups that took place after the lectures, when I heard people speak about their personal experiences. And that made me think about where I have a comparative advantage as an Israeli studying at an Israeli university. It speaks Hebrew. And I think that working with Hebrew speakers who are not exposed to the stories and the information like those presented in this seminar can be of great benefit in raising awareness in Israel of the dangers of anti-Semitism. And to the fact that it is so prevalent in the Western world today. My intention is to create a podcast in which I will interview Jews from around the world. We'll tell about their personal experience, focusing on questions of anti-Semitism, and generally on the experience of being Jew today in a variety of places around the world. Actually, it's an idea that I've been thinking about for a long time. But this week's seminars made me feel this is very much needed. Surprisingly, such an initiative does not yet exist. So I believe can success. And I hope that such project will increase the awareness of Israelis to the dangers of the global anti-Semitism. And I would love to share the project with you when it starts working. And I look forward and hope to study and work with ISGAP in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. So yeah, we'd be honored to work with you, and this project is very important because there is a big gap between, I think, the perceptions of Israelis. Yeah, I think there's this part of our Israeli identity is that if you're living in Galut, deal with it. If you want to come home, you won't have to deal with it.
Yes.
But the world is changing. We're a globalized community now. Yeah, so very important.
Thank you.
Decarius, the floor is yours.
Thank you all. I just want to say that I'm thankful for this program, and I'm glad to be able to share perspectives and testimonies with everyone. It's been a very enlightening experience. I'd also like to thank Ira for bringing me on into the program, and for Dr. Carr for introducing it into my world. Just to add to my point, I know we're strapped for time, but I had in our breakout rooms with with Professor Laserwolf, we discussed identity and reconciliation, and I'm glad that my fellows here that has also been a topic for them. So I just like to issue a shout out to them. Thank you all for having this conversation. And with that said, let me see if I can share my screen. I drafted a preliminary write-up that has to do with reconciliation. I believe that the crux of so much of this discourse is that Black liberation movements here in the United States, there's a misunderstanding between about the conflict in between Palestine and Israel. And I think at the crux of that is that we're focusing very much on our political standpoints, but less on the overall goal of people being recognized for their humanity and their self-determination. I'm glad that we're on one accord of the importance of self-determination. One of the things, as a person who works as a cultural worker and advocate and activist in the city of Birmingham, is we have workshops that focus on community healing and restorative justice. And my goal is to maybe translate some of the practices that we use here that we study through the lens of critical race theory, intersectionality, because we believe that those can be tools, although they have often been co-opted, they can also be tools to get people free and liberated and to create bonds between people rather than create division. And I think one of the action items that I've added is, understanding BLM and the Move for Black Lives and why they find allies, in certain parts of Israel, whether it be Palestine or amongst the Black Jewry or, the indigenous people there, addressing those hierarchies of oppression that can exist across the globe. And similar to how, there are often tense relations between Black community members and white community members, finding a sort of reconciliation between those two parties through, shared panels and talks. I also think it's important to have a class analysis about this as well, and how that relates to, our overall struggle for, freedom and self-determination as well. One of the deliverables that I propose for this is a group video documentation project, which will kind of basically fill that gap that is often lost on social media sites and through media outlets, and actually introduce Black students and community members to members of, and members of the diaspora to Palestinian and Israeli youth, and get those shared perspectives, because I feel like we're not getting the full picture of our respective experiences. I believe that that anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, anti-Blackness are interconnected, and we do ourselves a disservice by not recognizing how our struggles are related, and also finding ways to kind of address our internal biases so that we don't replicate the same systems and issues that ultimately keep us divided. I've also, due to my experience with drafting policy with my community members, I recommend that we create some case studies for my respective community members, and potentially use those as the basis to form policies, introduce those to the ISGAP, and then maybe use those to, you know, share those with not only the United States and, you know, our community leaders here, but also with the state of Israel, and find those common grounds. Much of my resources based on, you know, a balanced view of different media outlets, but also at this last particular reading material here, which is focused on restorative justice. I believe that at the end of all this, regardless of our political viewpoints, our goal should be restorative justice. So with love, peace, and solidarity, I hope that we can all find common ground. I hope that you know, we can continue this discourse, continue these conversations. And once again, I'm thankful for, you know, this experience, you know, and I hope everyone enjoys their day.
Thank you. Thanks for being here, and hopefully we'll continue the engagement. So thank you very much for your energy and time here, and success in your projects. Could you please unshare the screen so I can see who the next person is?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Look forward to staying in touch. I'm just trying to look on the screen who's next. I think Andreas, I believe.
People who haven't gone yet, raise your virtual hand so that it's easier for us to see you.
Thank you.
Yes. Hi.
Hi.
Thank you very much again for the whole week. And I enjoyed it and I learned a lot. I would share my screen also, but just a PowerPoint, yes. Do you see it? Yeah. Okay. That is a row. It's in German, but it will follow in English. That's a series of online events we did last winter about you can maybe translate it as Faces of Political Islam. And we would, there will be an anthology about it, and maybe I would like to talk about with you guys about this topic, Dr. Small or anybody else. And what we are planning now as a group of, I'm a student, so I don't teach at the university, but we are doing some political education. And we are planning now an online event series about the Holocaust and the Holocaust memory. I hope you can see the slides. Yeah, I don't see you, so. What is the idea of the series? It will be a free and public series of online events regarding the question, what was the Holocaust and how can it be remembered? Why do we want to do it? In Germany, I think there's a debate. I talked about it yesterday to Yehudit and Ira and Laserwolf. There's a debate about whether the Holocaust was unique and what the difference are between the Holocaust and anti-Semitism on the one side and colonialism, racism on the other side. And often the rejection of the uniqueness thesis is accompanied by the relativization and support of Israel-related anti-Semitism. And so with our lecture series, we are trying to critically examine the question of continuities between the Holocaust and colonial crimes. Who will speak? Yeah, we want to invite between 15 and 20 German and international researchers, scholars on anti-Semitism and the Holocaust. Oh, sorry, that's in German. The most of them already accepted our request. The organizers are a cooperation, or is a cooperation between the student representation of Oldenburg, where I study, Trier, where I have studied, and a group called Rosa Salon. It's a group of students doing political education work. And as I said, it will take place every 2 weeks from November the 9th in this year until May next year via Zoom. So if you're interested, you can also follow. Maybe just about the program. That's the first part. about maybe a more historical view. What was the Holocaust? Yeah, you see the program. I won't talk about every single lecture. For example, the core of the Holocaust, Holocaust and occupation history, history of German Holocaust research, or maybe the most important question, number 8, why is the Holocaust unique or unprecedented, sorry, with Stephen T. Katz. And the second part will be about the Holocaust remembrance. So, for example, with Professor Jeffrey Herf, I hope that he can join. Or Dina Porat about Holocaust memory in Israel. And we want to discuss post-colonial interpretations of the Holocaust. This book, maybe you're interested, I think it will be translated to English soon. I think it's a very interesting book. I don't know it's called in German, it's called Decolonizing Auschwitz question as a question. And then we will discuss about the relationship between racism and anti-Semitism. And at the end, talk about the theory of multi-directional memory. Maybe you know it from Michael Rothberg. It was translated in German this year, and there's a debate about still going on. Yeah, that's my program or our program for the next year or the next half year. And thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. And Andreas, Harris just told me he just received your email. It was in his junk, but he's going to respond to you. He's responded. He's responded to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Does anybody else have their hands up? Okay. Max. I don't see you. You're going to come here. Okay, cool. So Max is going to come to the screen. And then you. 90 seconds.
9 seconds. Okay, no problem. Hello, am I on the screen? Okay, cool. So I'm currently also not a professor. I'm a PhD student. I'm going to try and look over the next couple of years when I'm back in Princeton to see if I can teach a course with a member of faculty, maybe more in the Judaic Studies department or the religion department than anthropology. Some of the things I really took away that were really fantastic. I mean, it was all fantastic this week. I really liked some of the stuff with Dave Rich and David Hirsch and the ways they were talking about the relationship. Obviously, my topic is Brexit, so I'm very focused on populism and often anti-Semitism within the UK. So listening to David talk about some of these ideas of where anti-Semitism is outside of us, and David Hirsch, obviously, David Rich wrote a very good book about Jeremy Corbyn and that kind of populism. So I'd look to tie in some of the work I do on populism with how anti-Semitism kind of functions as part of these kind of broader ideologies. I also like a lot of the stuff we talked about today, which is really, really motivating me, is talking about how the Israel-Palestine conflict comes out of this, acts in a very important way in a lot of kind of progressive ideology and progressive kind of discourses, and it acts as a kind of mythology that allows people to see, by seeing the Jews as bad. As David Hirsch says it, there's clearly an extremely emotionally satisfying thing where people are enjoying thinking of the Jews, the source of all evil, and really how that fits into a lot of kind of progressive movements is something which I'm really interested in and look to teach and learn more about. So I think that's my 9 seconds. Thanks.
Thank you, Max. Thanks. Thank you, Max. Hannah, Alexandra.
Hi, everyone. I don't know where I am.
No.
Oh.
What's going on?
Whatever. That's okay.
I can see you. Go on.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So unfortunately, I'm not going to get to teach the course at this point, but I was told that I can give a couple of lectures. So some ideas that I have in mind are, first of all, the ideas behind Islam, specifically stuff that we've discussed with Harris, both in our discussions and in the formal lectures, ideas about the radicalization of Islam, Islamism, the principles, moderate Islam, the ideas of how why why they want to wipe Israel off the map, why we are, why they want to build the caliphate, and why there can't be kind of that two-state solution, and we can't have those kind of discussions, and interfaith and Islamophobia are not good terms. So that idea as one. The idea also of the Muslim Brotherhood and the funding in universities, and the fact that there's so much money that's not tracked, that's being sent to universities, and how that's influencing our curricula and the progressive social movement, the divorce between, almost divorce between the ideology and the progressive social movement. And then also, I guess, just the PR aspect of it, how much funding goes to the PR, and even like Leah Sobel's presentation in terms of the Spanish-speaking media. So those are just some of my top ideas on top of my head.
Wasi. It's a cool thing.
Hello everyone, my name is Wasiq, and I just want to take this opportunity to thank Charles, his team, so El Shaddai, Daphne and Ira for organising this fantastic event, Harris for bringing me on board. One of the gaps in the market that we've identified is our high school curriculum, and how sometimes the Holocaust and anti-Semitism are looked at as two distinct variables, whereas they're actually the same. And what I'm going to hopefully try to do is to fill that gap in, and try to re-educate and develop a curriculum that can actually fill in that gap, and hopefully bring it back into our consciousness, and to kind of build those bridges that we need to do in terms of lots of faith communities. So I'll leave it there, because I know we're all dying to go. So thank you very much, guys.
Thank you. Cool. Is there anybody else who has not spoken? No?
I could go and finish my presentation now if you like.
Harris would like to do a 4-hour lecture. Okay. So we're doing it at the pub. Okay. All right. So I think that's all the presentations. Is that correct? Does anybody else want to say anything? Okay. So my final remarks. We're running late and we're going to leave the room, so I will be very brief. First of all, I'd like to thank Ira Guberman and El Shaddai Abraham and Daphne Kleinman for their amazing efforts to putting this program together. They should really get a tremendous amount of appreciation. Without them, this program would not have happened. And they really pushed to get everybody together. So thank you. An amazing team. So that's first and foremost. And I want to thank everybody who participated, and you put a lot of time and energy sitting here listening to heavy, sometimes depressing subject matter. It's a heavy, complicated issue and complicated times that we're living in. And our work is cut out for us. And I think what is an important element, an element that gives us hope, is that there are a lot of intelligent, capable, committed people on this screen. With your efforts, we're kind of creating a network of scholars, and as this network grows, and we're going to have more publishing opportunities, and it looks like we're going to have a fellowship training program coming online, hopefully in the next few months, potentially at a fancy university in the UK, and then perhaps beyond. So we will be looking for research fellowships, fellows to apply to the program. We will have more publishing opportunities for anybody writing or wanting to do programs, hold symposiums and conferences. ISGAP is getting more resources that could become available to scholars, so please stay within in the network. And when you guys go out and teach students about these issues, that there really is a vacuum, a blind spot in academia on these issues, the more we grow our network, the more publications, the more programming, the more students, we can make a difference. And you know, the time is of, as Elie Wiesel said, of great urgency, if not an emergency. So please stay in touch, and really thank you for being here, and thanks for all your contributions and making the program what it was. So stay in touch and stay well, and enjoy the summer, the rest of the summer. And Ira has a whole speech. It's just a 30-minute speech, so.
Yeah. Here's my lecture for the Summer Institute. No, you will be getting, you know, another survey, the Day 5 survey, and a more overall survey where you can give fuller feedback. So please, you know, feel free to share all the good things, a few of the bad things, you know, we'll take it all. But yeah, we appreciate everybody's participation. Consider coming back in 2022 when, you know, we'll have a 2-week program in Oxford, you know, hopefully everyone can make it by then. And yeah, I also just want to tip my hat to Charles also, you know, he's the real driving force behind this program. And, you know, without him, none of it would have been possible. And yeah, it's a lot easier being on the other side of the computer screen than being in that seat in Oxford. So yeah, thank you to Charles.
Cool. Thanks, Ira. And yes, so hopefully you'll be here next summer for 2 weeks in person, which would be wonderful. So in the meanwhile, everybody stay safe and healthy. Be well.